A New Hope, Amina and Mr. Davies' story. This is the story of Amina, a poor woman, and Mr. Davies, a wealthy businessman. One was hungry and desperate. The other had everything money could buy. But one rainy morning in Lagos, their lives crossed in a way no one expected. And what happened next will deeply move you. It was a cold morning. The rain was falling lightly. Cars whizzed by on the busy Lagos road. Amina stood at the corner, holding baby Kito close to her chest. The baby was wrapped in a thin cloth, crying softly. Her body was cold, her face wet. Amina had no umbrella, no jacket, no food, no home. Her slippers were torn, her dress soaked. But she didn't move, couldn't move. Last night, she and her baby had nothing to eat, not even a spoonful of food. So this morning, even though the rain was falling, she was ready to stand by the roadside until someone helped. It wasn't because she wanted the food so badly for herself. It was because her baby was hungry, and she couldn't bear to watch her child suffer again. People walked past. Some looked at her with pity, some looked away. Two men stood near her and whispered, "Why is she standing there in the rain?" "Maybe it's her job," the other man said. A lot of people pretend just to get free money. Some even go as far as renting a baby to attract pity. Amina heard them, but she said nothing. She just wiped Kito's face and rocked her gently. Amina stretched out her hand. Her voice was soft, tired, but full of pain. "Please help me. Just a little food for my baby. She hasn't eaten. Please." She looked down at Kito's face. The baby's lips were dry, her cry now weak. Amina held her tighter. "Don't worry, my baby. Mommy will find food today, even if I have to stand here all day. Help will come." But Amina didn't know that help was closer than she thought. Inside a black Jeep, a man sat in the back seat. His name was Mr. Davies. He was very rich, the kind of rich that made people look twice when he walked by. Today he was going to his office very early. He had a big meeting with some foreign investors who wanted to work with his company. This meeting was very critical. It could help his company grow and bring more business from different parts of the country. The road was busy and cars were moving slowly. It was the usual Lagos traffic. Mr. Davies leaned back in his seat and looked out through the glass. Then something caught his eye. He sat up. A young woman was standing by the roadside. She was holding a baby. The rain was still falling, not too heavy, but steady enough to soak someone. The baby was already wet. The woman looked tired, worn out, almost like she had no strength left. Mr. Davies' eyes stayed on her. He saw how she held the baby tightly, as if that child was the only thing she had left in the world. She wasn't moving. She wasn't shouting. She just stood there quietly asking for help. Mr. Davies felt something deep inside. He knew this wasn't ordinary. A person begging with a little baby in the rain. This was real pain. He looked at her again. And then he made a decision. "Stop the car," Mr. Davies said. The driver looked back. "Sir, just stop." The driver pulled over and stopped the car. Mr. Davies opened the door. He stepped into the rain. His shoes touched the wet road. His suit began to get wet, but he didn't care. He walked slowly toward the woman. Amina didn't notice him. She was busy rocking her baby, Kito. The baby was still crying, soft and tired. Mr. Davies stood in front of her. Amina looked up. She was surprised to see a tall man standing so close. She looked at his face. He looked serious, but kind. "Good morning," Mr. Davies said gently. Amina said nothing. She only nodded. He looked at the baby. "What's her name?" "Kito," Amina replied softly. Mr. Davies stepped closer and looked at Kito's face. She was shaking. Her lips trembled as she cried quietly. "Has she eaten?" he asked. Amina shook her head. "No, sir. Not since yesterday." Mr. Davies looked at her soaked clothes. Her hands were freezing from the cold. "And you? Have you eaten?" Amina looked down. "No, sir, but it's okay. I just want to find food for my baby." Mr. Davies stayed quiet for a moment. He looked at both mother and child. Then he said, "Come with me." Amina looked up, confused. "Sir, come. Let me help you." Amina stood still. She looked at Mr. Davies. She was afraid. She had never spoken to a rich man before. She didn't know what to think. But when she looked at his eyes, they were calm. They were kind. She looked down at Kito. The baby was still shaking. Her tiny fingers were cold. Amina took a deep breath. Then she nodded slowly. She followed Mr. Davies toward the black car. The driver opened the door. Amina stepped in, holding Kito close to her chest. She sat carefully at the edge of the seat, afraid to touch anything. The driver looked at her through the mirror. He didn't say a word, but his eyes were full of questions. Amina avoided his eyes. She looked at her baby and kept rocking her gently. Beside her, Mr. Davies sat quietly. He looked ahead as the car moved. But his mind was full of thoughts. Who was this woman? What had happened to her? And how did she end up like this? Inside the car, Mr. Davies picked a small towel from the seat. He handed it to Amina. "Here," he said, "use this to dry the baby." Amina took the towel quickly. "Thank you, sir," she said. Her hands were shaking as she wrapped it around Kito. Mr. Davies looked at her. Her dress was still wet. Her hair was dripping, but she didn't complain. She was only focused on her baby. "What's your name?" he asked. "Amina," she replied softly. "Okay, Amina, where's your home?" Amina looked down. She didn't speak at first. Then she said in a low voice, "We sleep on the street, sir." Mr. Davies nodded slowly. He didn't show shock. He just breathed in and said, "All right, I'll take you somewhere safe." Amina looked up. Her eyes were wide. "Really, sir?" Mr. Davies nodded. "Yes, somewhere dry and warm. You and Kito need rest and food." Tears filled Amina's eyes, but she wiped them quickly. "Thank you, sir. God bless you." Mr. Davies said nothing more. He looked out the window deep in thought, but Amina did not know that this was just the beginning. Mr. Davies looked at his watch again. He knew he was almost late for the meeting. The foreign representatives might be waiting at his office already. It was an important meeting, one that could affect a significant growth in his company. But he looked at Amina. He looked at her baby Kito. They were both tired, cold, hungry. He shook his head. "No," he said to himself. "They need food first." He told the driver to stop at a small restaurant. They went inside. Mr. Davies didn't care who was watching. He ordered hot jollof rice, fried plantain, chicken, and warm milk for the baby. He asked them to bring water. Amina sat at the edge of the chair, still holding Kito. Her stomach was turning. She had not eaten in 2 days. When the food came, she looked at Mr. Davies. "Can I eat here, sir?" she asked softly. Mr. Davies nodded. "Yes, eat." Amina bowed her head. She placed Kito on her lap and fed her the warm milk. Then she started eating. She ate slowly at first, like someone who was afraid the food would disappear. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she chewed. Mr. Davies watched in silence. He didn't speak. He just waited. When she finished, she wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. Then she looked up at Mr. Davies. Her voice was quiet. "Thank you, sir." "God bless you, sir." Mr. Davies leaned forward. "Tell me what happened to you. How did you end up like this?" Amina looked down at her baby. Then she began to speak. "Sir, I don't have anyone in this world. My parents died when I was a little girl. I grew up in an orphanage in Ibadan. Life was hard. Very hard. As I grew older, I learned how to survive. I worked in people's houses. I cleaned. I washed. I cooked. Anything I could do to survive." She looked at Kito's face and kissed her forehead. "Then one day I met Olu. He was a taxi driver in Lagos, but he came from a neighboring country. He was kind and we became close. We loved each other. After 1 year, he said we would get married. She paused. Mr. Davies was still listening. The restaurant was quiet. A few months later, I found out I was pregnant. I was scared at first, but when I told Olu, he was happy. He said he was ready to marry me, but he needed to travel home and tell his family. He said it was their tradition that he must tell his family first before bringing his fiancée home. Her voice broke. That was the last time I saw him. Mr. Davies blinked. He sat up straight. What do you mean? Amina nodded slowly. He promised to come back in 1 week, but he never came back. His number stopped going. I waited. I cried. I begged his friends, but no one knew anything. Or maybe they were just hiding the truth. I don't know. I had no money left. I lost the house I was staying in. No job would take me because of the pregnancy. So I started sleeping outside. I begged for food. She wiped her eyes. Now Kito is all I have. Mr. Davies' heart was heavy. He looked at the little girl, now sleeping peacefully. Then he looked at Amina. She was still young, still full of hope. But life had treated her like nothing. Mr. Davies took a deep breath. He made a quiet promise in his heart. This is not where her story will end. Mr. Davies reached into his pocket. He brought out some money. Then he placed it on the table in front of Amina. Take this, he said. It will help you and your baby for now. Amina looked at the money. Her hands began to shake. Sir, this is too much, she said quietly. I can't take all of this. Mr. Davies looked her in the eyes. Take it, he said again gently. You need it. Amina looked down at Kito, who was still asleep in her arms. She picked the money and held it close to her chest. Then she bowed her head. Thank you, sir. May God bless you. Mr. Davies nodded. He smiled a little. Then he looked at his wristwatch. His eyes widened. The time for his meeting had already passed. The foreign guests were probably already at his office. He stood up quickly. I have a very important meeting this morning, he said. It will last for about 3 hours. He brought out a card from his wallet. It was his business card. It had his name and number on it. He handed it to her. Call me after 3 hours, he said. I will come to wherever you are and take you and your baby to a safe place. Amina held the card carefully like it was gold. She wanted to speak, but something held her back. She didn't have a phone, not even a small one. She looked at Mr. Davies' face. She wanted to tell him, but her lips didn't move. Thank you, sir, she said instead. She thought fast. Now that I have some money, maybe I could pay someone to help me make the call when the time comes. Mr. Davies gave her one last look. I'll be waiting for your call, he said. Then he turned and walked out of the restaurant. Amina sat there holding Kito with one hand and the business card in the other. For the first time in a long while, she had hope. After sitting in the restaurant for a while, Amina stood up. She took the business card Mr. Davies gave her and folded it neatly. She didn't want to lose it, so she slid it into a small pocket sewn inside Kito's tiny clothes. The baby was still sleeping. She touched the pocket to make sure it was safe. Then she held Kito close to her chest. As she stepped out of the restaurant, her baby's blanket shifted a little. She tried to adjust it without waking Kito. Pay someone to help me. But now there was no card, no number, nothing. At exactly noon, Mr. Davies stood up from his seat in the meeting room. The foreign guests had just left. Everything had gone well. He should have been smiling, but his mind went somewhere else. He frowned a little. He reached into his pocket and looked at his phone. No missed calls. He looked at the time again. 5 hours had passed. He sat down and stared at the floor. Why hasn't she called me? He asked himself. Did she forget? He rubbed his fingers together. Maybe she never planned to call. Maybe she's one of those people who beg for a living. His face grew serious. But she didn't look like that. She looked scared. She looked broken. He remembered how she cried while eating. He remembered how she held her baby close, as if the world was trying to take her away. He sighed deeply. I told her I would take her to a safe place just for her baby's sake. Why wouldn't she want that? He stared at his phone again. Still no call. After a while, he placed the phone on his desk and returned to his work. But in his heart, he wasn't at peace. And outside, in another part of the city, Amina sat quietly in the shade, still waiting, still holding Kito. With no idea the card was gone. It was lunchtime. Mr. Davies got into his black SUV and sat quietly for a moment. He looked out the window deep in thought. Then he turned to his driver and said, "Take me to that small restaurant we went to this morning. The one where I took the woman and her baby." The driver nodded and started the engine. As the car moved through the streets of Lagos, Mr. Davies kept looking out. He was hoping, just maybe, she would still be nearby. He couldn't stop thinking about her. Something didn't feel right. What if she tried to call but couldn't? What if something happened to her? The questions kept growing in his mind. They got to the restaurant. Mr. Davies quickly stepped out. He looked around. His eyes moved from one corner to another. Nothing. No sign of Amina. No sign of the baby. He walked slowly toward the restaurant entrance. His steps were quiet. Just as he reached the door, he saw something on the wet floor. He bent down. There it was, the business card he had given Amina. It was wet. The edges were soft from the rain. The words on it were still clear. He picked it up and stared at it. His heart sank. Did she throw this away? He whispered. Or did it fall off without her knowing? He looked around again. Still nothing. He held the card tightly in his hand. Then he walked into the restaurant and sat at the same table they had used earlier. A waitress came to him. "Good afternoon, sir. What would you like to eat?" He looked at her without smiling. "Just give me jollof rice and chicken," he said softly. As the waitress walked away, Mr. Davies leaned back in his chair. He placed the wet card on the table. He kept staring at it. In his mind, two voices were speaking. One said, "She left. She never planned to call." The other said, "She lost the card. And maybe she's still waiting for you." He didn't know which voice to believe, but one thing was clear. He couldn't stop thinking about what the woman's little baby might be going through. Far away in another part of the city, Amina was still seated quietly in the shade. Little Kito was still sleeping in her arms. Amina looked tired. Her eyes were red. At this point, she thought it was the right time to call Mr. Davies, so she slowly opened the small pocket in Kito's clothes to check the business card again. Her hand stopped. Her heart jumped. It was gone. She searched again, shaking the small clothes, checking her own wrapper. Nothing. She stood up and looked around the ground. Still nothing. Tears filled her eyes. "Oh no. No. No," she cried softly. She sat back down, holding Kito close. "This is not happening," she whispered. "God finally sent someone to help me. Someone kind. And now I've lost his card." She wiped her face with her wrapper, but the tears kept falling. "Mr. Davies, he said he would come for us. He said we would be safe." She remembered his voice, his kind eyes, the money he gave her, the food, and now there was no way to reach him. She held Kito tighter. "I'm so sorry, baby. Mommy lost it. I lost the only chance we had." Her heart was heavy. Her lips were shaking. Then suddenly a thought came to her. Maybe it dropped inside the bus I entered. Or maybe at the restaurant where he took us to eat. She looked up. She knew the bus was long gone. She had no idea which bus number it was. But the restaurant? Yes. She remembered the street. She remembered the table inside. She could find it. She stood up, still crying, but with new hope. "I must go back. Maybe the card is still there. Maybe someone kept it safe." She wrapped Kito properly on her back and began walking fast down the road. She prayed quietly, "God, please let me find it. Let this not be the end of our help." Her feet were tired. Her body was weak, but her heart kept moving. She found a small yellow bus going towards the area. She climbed in and sat quietly. She didn't speak much. Her eyes stayed on the road. Every stop made her heart beat faster. Finally, the bus stopped. At the bus stop close to the restaurant. She came down, looked around, and walked quickly. Would the card still be there? She didn't know, but she was ready to find out. Mr. Davies sat quietly in the restaurant, finishing his food. His mind was still on the card. He picked it up, cleaned it with a tissue, and looked at it for a while. He let out a long sigh and stepped out of the restaurant. His driver opened the car door and Mr. Davies stepped in. "Let's go back to the office," he said. As Mr. Davies' car pulled out from the front of the restaurant, Amina was just a few steps away. She didn't see his face through the dark car window. He didn't see her either. By the time she reached the restaurant, the car was gone. She stood in front of the door, breathing hard. She walked in slowly, holding her baby to her chest, looking around. Everything looked the same, but something was missing. She went to the same table where they ate that morning. The table was clean. No card, no sign. She bent down and checked under the table. Nothing. She turned to one of the waitresses nearby. "Excuse me, please. Did anyone find a small card here?" Amina asked, her voice shaking. The waitress looked at her and shook her head. "No, madam. We cleaned the whole place. Nothing like that." Amina's eyes were full of tears. She stepped outside, holding Kito close. Kito had started crying. Amina tried to calm her, but her own tears were falling, too. Her only chance was gone, and she had no idea how close she had been to getting help. She turned and walked away slowly, not knowing that the man she was looking for had just left. Only seconds before. That night, Amina sat on the cold floor of the unfinished building. It was dark. There were no windows, just broken walls and open space. She placed some old clothes on the floor and laid Kito down gently. Kito was already asleep, her tiny hand resting on Amina's arm. Amina sat beside her, staring at the ceiling with tears in her eyes. She whispered, "God, I don't want my child to grow up like this. Please help us." She thought of Mr. Davies, his face, his kindness, the way he looked at her and her baby. Then she thought of the card. She had lost it. She pressed her hands against her chest and sighed deeply. "Maybe I'll never see him again," she said softly. But just before closing her eyes, she made a decision. A quiet but strong decision. "I will go back to that spot, the same place he saw me. Maybe, just maybe, he might pass there again." She didn't sleep much. The wind blew through the open space. Mosquitoes bit her arms. Kito cried in the middle of the night. Still, she held on. By early morning, Amina was already up. She cleaned Kito with some water from a small bowl. She dressed her up and brushed her hair gently. She looked at Kito and smiled. "We will be okay. I promise." Amina was not hungry that morning. Mr. Davies had given her enough money to feed them for even more than a week. But today was not about food. Today was about hope. She left the building and walked down the road with her baby on her back. She didn't beg. She just stood at the same spot where Mr. Davies had seen her that first morning, watching, waiting, hoping. Would he pass this way again? She didn't know. But she was ready to wait for as long as it would take. The sun was already high in the sky. It was a bright and happy morning in Mr. Davies' house. Today was special. His younger brother, Jide, was coming back home after 17 long years. 17 years away in Toronto. Mr. Davies had been waiting for this day. He didn't go to the office. He had planned everything. He informed the driver early and said, "Please go to the airport. My brother is landing this morning. Make sure you're there on time." "Yes, sir," the driver replied and left quickly. Mr. Davies walked around the house with a smile on his face. He went into the kitchen and spoke with the chef. "Make sure there's fried rice, jollof, grilled chicken, goat meat, and pounded yam." My brother loves pounded yam. The chef smiled. Don't worry, sir. Everything will be ready before he arrives. Then Mr. Davies picked up his phone and called 3 of his closest friends. G-Day is arriving today. Come over. Let's welcome him. They all agreed to come. Laughter was already filling the air in the compound. Music was playing softly in the background. Mr. Davies stood at the balcony and looked out with joy in his heart. This is a good day, he whispered. But far away in the city, Amina was still standing by the road. Kito was tied to her back. Her eyes were tired, but her heart was still strong. She looked at every black SUV that passed. But unfortunately, today the driver had gone with Mr. Davies' newest red SUV. She waited and prayed. Maybe Mr. Davies would pass by again. Maybe today would be the day her life would change. But she didn't know that Mr. Davies was at home laughing and waiting for his brother. She didn't know that the man she was praying to meet again was not coming out today. Not even close. God, please don't forget me, she said. The day was still young, but the wait was getting long. At the airport, Mr. Davies' driver stood by the entrance of the pickup area holding a small sign that said G-Day. Soon, a tall man with a wide smile and a trolley full of suitcases came out of the airport. G-Day saw the man with the sign that had his name on it and smiled. He walked over. You must be Mr. Davies' driver. Yes, sir, the driver said, taking the trolley. As they drove out of the airport, G-Day rolled down the window and looked around. This place has really changed, he said. The driver smiled. Yes, sir. A lot has changed since you left. But as they moved deeper into the city, the car began to slow down. Cars were everywhere. Trucks, buses, tricycles, and bikes. Honking filled the air. The driver sighed. This traffic has started again. G-Day laughed and leaned back. How do you people cope with this chaos? The driver laughed. We just have to. This is Lagos, the most populous city in Africa. They both laughed. But just then, as the car moved slowly again, the driver looked ahead. His smile dropped for a second. There, by the side of the road, a young woman was standing with a baby tied to her back. She looked tired, and she was the same woman Mr. Davies had taken to the restaurant with her baby yesterday. The same woman he went back to the restaurant to look for. The same woman who gave her baby food before eating herself. The driver's hands tightened on the steering wheel. G-Day noticed the change in his face. Is something wrong? G-Day asked. The driver shook his head. No, sir. Just this traffic. He didn't know what to do. Should I stop? Should I call my boss? But he wasn't sure. So he kept driving, but he kept looking at her through the mirror, and inside his heart, he knew that woman was important. About 19 minutes later, the black SUV drove into Mr. Davies' big mansion. As soon as the car stopped, G-Day stepped out and looked around. The house was beautiful with flowers by the gate. Everything was clean and shiny. Suddenly, the front door opened. Mr. Davies stepped out with a big smile on his face. G-Day, he shouted. Brother. G-Day laughed and opened his arms. They hugged each other tight. You look good, Mr. Davies said, holding his brother's shoulder. And you look richer, G-Day teased. They both laughed. Just then, some of Mr. Davies' close friends came out, too. They shook hands with G-Day and welcomed him warmly. There was laughter, smiles, and drinks in hand. But one person was not smiling, the driver. He stood quietly beside the car, looking worried. His eyes moved to Mr. Davies every few seconds. He needed to talk, and he needed to talk fast before the woman left that spot. As everyone began walking into the mansion, the driver followed quietly. He didn't say a word. He just stood by the main door and waited. Soon, Mr. Davies walked toward the kitchen to check on the food. The chef was busy inside slicing meat and frying. The driver quickly followed behind. Excuse me, sir, he said in a low voice. Mr. Davies turned around. Yes, what is it? The driver took a deep breath. Sir, I saw her. Mr. Davies' face changed. Who? The woman from yesterday, sir? The one with the baby. She was standing at the same spot where you met her before. Mr. Davies went quiet. His eyes looked down like he was thinking deeply. Then he spoke slowly. The woman who threw away my card. Does she really want help? He remembered the rain. He remembered the way she covered her baby with her wrapper in the rain. He remembered her saying, "My baby didn't eat last night." He felt something move in his chest. Maybe she was just scared. Maybe she did not throw the card away deliberately. He looked at the driver and said, "Go back to that spot now. If she's still there, ask her why she didn't call me. If her reason makes sense, and if her face shows that she really wants help, bring her to me." The driver nodded. "Yes, sir." He turned and walked out fast. Amina was still standing by the roadside. She looked tired. Little Kito was quiet in her arms. The sun was hot now, and the baby's tiny head was sweating. Amina looked down the road again. Her eyes searched for any sign of Mr. Davies' car, but nothing. She looked at the sky, then at her baby. Her heart was beginning to sink. "It's past 12 already," she said softly. If he was going to the office like yesterday, he would have passed by now. She looked up again, still hoping. Then she whispered, Maybe he didn't go to work today. Or maybe he went through a different route." She sighed and looked at Kito. "Let's go, my baby. Let's find somewhere with shade." She was just about to turn and walk away when she heard a voice behind her. "Madam." She stopped. She turned quickly. A red SUV had stopped by the roadside. The window rolled down. The man inside pointed at her. "Wait," he said. She looked closely. It was Mr. Davies' driver. Her eyes opened wide. Her heart jumped. She held Kito tighter. As the driver opened the door and stepped out, Amina took a small step forward. The moment their eyes met, tears filled hers. She didn't cry loud, but the tears were there. She quickly spoke, her voice shaking. "I'm sorry," she said. "I lost the card he gave me yesterday. I looked everywhere. I went back to the restaurant, but it wasn't there." The driver looked at her. He saw the tired face, the sweat, the way she held her baby like gold. She wasn't faking it. She wasn't pretending. She looked like a woman who had cried in silence all night. He didn't need to ask anything else. "Please follow me," he said gently. Amina nodded. He opened the back door. She climbed in with Kito. The driver got in and started the engine. As they drove off, Amina looked out of the window. She didn't know what was waiting for her at the end of that ride, but in her heart, she whispered, "Thank you, God. Thank you." The red SUV drove into Mr. Davies' compound and stopped at the carport. The driver came down first and gently opened the back door for Amina. She stepped out slowly, holding Kito close. Her heart was beating fast. She looked up at the big house. It was like a dream. Everything looked beautiful. The driver smiled softly. "Come with me." She followed him. As they entered the house, the sound of laughter came from the sitting room. Mr. Davies was there sitting with his brother Jide and a few other guests. They were still talking and laughing. But the moment Mr. Davies looked up and saw Amina, his smile faded. He stood up slowly. Amina moved quickly toward him. Still holding Kito, she dropped to her knees to greet him. But Mr. Davies rushed to her and held her arms. "No, please," he said gently. "Don't do that." She stood shaking. Everyone turned to look. The room went quiet. No one said a word, but their eyes were full of questions. Mr. Davies didn't explain. He only turned to her and said, "Come with me." He led her away from the sitting room and down the hallway. He opened the door to one of the guest rooms. It was clean and fresh. "Please," he said softly, "take a proper bath. You and your baby, you can rest here." Amina nodded slowly, still looking around like she wasn't sure if this was real. Mr. Davies left her there and went straight to the kitchen. He called the chef. "There's a woman in the guest room. Mr. Davies said firmly. Make sure she eats well. Don't delay. Yes, sir, the chef replied. Later that evening, after everyone had left, Mr. Davies sat in the living room with Jide and Amina. Amina looked cleaner now. She had changed into fresh clothes the maid gave her. Kito was fast asleep in her arms. Mr. Davies looked at her. You said you lost the card, he asked gently. Amina nodded. Yes, sir. I looked everywhere for it. I even went back to the restaurant, but I didn't see it. She paused, then added, my phone? It got bad before I gave birth. I've not had a phone since then. Jide listened quietly. Mr. Davies had already told him a little about the woman and what happened the day before. Now seeing her like this, Jide felt something deep inside his chest. He looked at the baby and then at Mr. Davies. Mr. Davies leaned forward. I can't change the past, he said. But I can help your future. Amina looked at him speechless. Mr. Davies continued. I want you to think. Is there any business you want to do? Anything you're good at or something you'd like to learn? Tell me and I'll set it up for you. Amina blinked. Then he added, you'll be staying here for now until I find you a place of your own. Tears rolled down her cheeks. This time she didn't try to hide them. She looked at Kito. Then she looked at Mr. Davies. Thank you, she whispered. Jide smiled a little and looked at his brother. Mr. Davies simply nodded. But in his heart, he knew he had just made a decision that would change this woman's life forever. A few days later, Mr. Davies walked into the guest room and smiled at Amina. Get ready, he said. We're going out. Out? She asked, surprised. He nodded. Yes, you and Kito need something important. Soon they were on the road. Mr. Davies didn't say much, but Amina held Kito close and looked out the window. She still couldn't believe all this was happening to her. They arrived at a big clothing shop. Mr. Davies led them inside. Pick anything you like, he said. Amina looked at him with wide eyes. Sir, what do you mean? I mean it, he smiled. You and Kito, you both deserve it. At first, Amina was shy. She touched some of the clothes and dropped them again. But Mr. Davies encouraged her. Soon, she picked a few pretty dresses for herself and some nice baby clothes for Kito. When they were done, the cashier packed everything nicely. Mr. Davies paid for everything. Amina's eyes were full of joy. Thank you, sir, she said. Thank you so much. But Mr. Davies wasn't done yet. Next, they went to a phone shop. He asked the seller to bring a new phone, one that was strong and easy to use. Then, he took her to the telecom outlet. There, he helped her retrieve her old phone number. Amina held the phone like it was gold. God bless you, sir, she said with tears in her eyes. I don't even know what to say. Mr. Davies simply smiled. You don't have to say anything. They returned to the mansion. When they stepped inside, Jide was already sitting in the living room waiting. He stood up as they entered. Mr. Davies, he said, there's a place I want you to go with me, and I'd also like Amina to come along. Mr. Davies looked at Amina. She nodded. Dead quietly. They all left the house together and entered the car. Nobody said much during the drive. Amina kept wondering what this was about. She looked at Kito, who was asleep in her arms, and prayed in her heart. After some time, the car stopped in front of a tall apartment building. Jide told the driver to park. Then they all came down. Mr. Davies looked at Jide. Where are we? Just follow me, Jide said. They walked into the compound. As they reached the door of one of the apartments, Jide stopped. He turned and looked at Amina. When I heard your story, he began slowly. It reminded me of our mother. Amina listened, not sure where he was going with it. Jide's voice became softer. She was a single mother, he said. She raised Mr. Davies and me all by herself. I remember how she used to cry at night. I would see her when I woke up, but I couldn't do anything. We were too small to help her. Amina's eyes were already wet. Her hands shook as she held Kito tighter. Jide continued. She passed before we made money. before we could show her the love she truly deserved. That pain has never left me. Then Jide reached into his pocket. He brought out a small key. This apartment, he said, is for you. Amina's knees gave way. She dropped to the ground and began to cry loudly. Oh God, she cried. What did I do to deserve this kindness? Mr. Davies was quiet. He looked at Jide, shocked. He had wanted to help Amina, but now it was his brother who had taken it even further. Mr. Davies walked up to him and hugged him tight. I am proud of the man you've become, he said with a heavy voice. I just wish Mommy was here to see this. Jide held his brother's hand and smiled. Then he turned to Amina again. I've also made plans to open a supermarket for you, he said. Don't worry, we'll get a good manager, but you'll be the supervisor, and with time, you'll learn how to manage it fully by yourself. Amina cried even more. She didn't know what to say, but in her heart, she knew her life would never be the same again. Weeks passed quietly. Amina's life had changed in ways she never imagined. She now had a clean house to sleep in, food to eat, and a big supermarket with her name on it. The shelves were full. Customers came in every day. She was no longer begging on the street with baby Kito tied to her back. One warm afternoon, she was in the office inside her supermarket, writing down sales and checking her books. Kito was sleeping in a small crib beside her. Suddenly, her phone rang. It was a strange number. She stared at the screen for a moment, unsure whether to answer. Something told her to pick the call. She pressed the green button and held the phone to her ear. The voice on the other end was a woman's voice. It was calm but carried deep sadness. Hello, is this Amina? Yes, this is Amina, she answered slowly. There was a pause. I'm calling from a nearby country, the voice continued. My name is Chioma. I'm Olu's cousin. At the sound of Olu's name, Amina froze. Her eyes filled with tears instantly. She hadn't heard that name in so long. I've been trying this number for over a year, the woman said. But it was always off. I only got through today. Amina didn't speak. She held her breath, listening. My cousin Olu, he came into the country the same day he left you. The woman said gently. There was an accident, a bad one. He never made it home. Amina held her chest. Her heart felt heavy. He was in a coma for 4 months, the woman went on. He never woke up. He passed away quietly. A long silence filled the line. I saw the messages you sent him, Chioma added. I saw the love in your words. I knew he was serious about you. Amina wiped her face. She didn't know what to say. From the messages, I believe there's a child, the woman said softly. Is there? Yes, Amina whispered. Her name is Kito. She is his daughter. Her voice broke as she said it. But she didn't hide it anymore. The woman on the phone let out a deep sigh. Olu's mother is still alive, she said. She's very old now. She cries every day. She thinks Olu left this world without leaving anything. But now there's hope. Amina took a deep breath and spoke with calm strength. Don't worry, she said. I'll make arrangements to bring Kito to see her. She must meet her granddaughter. I'll do everything I can to make it happen. The woman on the other end began to cry softly. Thank you, she said. After the call ended, Amina sat alone in the small office. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Not tears of pain, but tears of peace. For so long, she had lived with questions. She had lived with silence. But now she knew the truth. Olu didn't abandon her. He never came back because he couldn't. He was already fighting for his life. Amina had finally found closure. And now her daughter Kito would grow up knowing where she came from. A few days later, Mr. Davies and Jide came by the supermarket. They saw Amina smiling again, this time from a place deep inside her. Mr. Davies placed his hand on her shoulder. You're strong, he said. And she was, because even though life had tried to break her, she stood up again. Not with hate, not with anger, but with hope. And with that, a new chapter began for Amina and her daughter Kito. True wealth is not in money, but in how we treat people who can't pay us back. We rise by lifting others. And even when life seems unfair, don't give up. Sometimes the help you need is watching you quietly, ready to show up when you least expect it. Also, never judge people by what they're going through. Everyone has a story. And with just one act of kindness, you can become the turning point in someone's life. What did you learn from Amina's story? Was there a moment that made you cry or smile?